Another day in court, another loss by Donald Trump. A New York judge has dismissed a $100 million lawsuit against the New York Times. The suit was filed by Trump in 2021, wherein he accused the paper and three of its reporters of conspiring in an insidious plot with his niece, Mary Trump, to improperly obtain his tax records for a series of stories that were published in 2018. And yet, despite the hysterical language used by Trump, the judge didn't view this so much as an insidious plot as a non-issue, saying that Trump's claims against the Times fail as a matter of constitutional law. State Supreme Court Justice Reed wrote, "Courts have long recognized that reporters are entitled to engage in legal and ordinary news-gathering activities without fear of tort liability, and these actions are at the very core of protected First Amendment activity." And it wasn't just the loss. Trump was also ordered by the judge to pay legal expenses and associated costs for the New York Times and the three reporters. A spokesman for the Times released a statement saying, quote, "The New York Times is pleased with the judge's decision today. It is an important precedent reaffirming that the press is protected when it engages in routine news gathering to obtain information of vital importance to the public." As for Trump himself, his own lawyer, Alina Habba, responded, saying, "We will weigh our client's options and continue to vigorously fight on his behalf." She claimed that the New York Times reporters, quote, "went well beyond the conventional news-gathering techniques permitted by the First Amendment. All journalists must be held accountable when they commit civil wrongs." And of course, while that may be true, it wasn't even close to being the case here. Now, as Trump's options moving forward are, as mentioned by Alina Habba, he can either accept the ruling or he can appeal, where Trump is almost assured to lose again given how frivolous this lawsuit was in the first place, only then he'd have to pay even more legal fees. It's almost like engaging in useless lawsuits while playing victim was doomed right from the start. Who could have possibly guessed? Consider, too, the series of articles at the heart of this lawsuit was actually awarded a Pulitzer Prize in 2019. This was award-winning reporting put together by award-winning reporters, and Trump was so angry at the prospect that his own misfortune contributed to others' success that he tried to sue them. To claim that this guy isn't just a sentient ego is a fundamental misunderstanding of who Donald Trump actually is. And of course, this certainly isn't the only loss that Trump has suffered in the courts. He was also indicted by the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg for his illegal hush money payout to Stormy Daniels, and that trial is expected to begin as early as January 2024. And he is awaiting possible indictments in Fulton County, Georgia, for pressuring Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to find 11,780 votes that didn't exist for the express purpose of overturning an election that he lost, in the New York Attorney General's investigation for business fraud against him, his children, and the Trump Organization, at the DOJ for stealing classified documents from the White House and refusing to return them, even going so far as to have his lawyer sign a document falsely attesting that all of the stolen documents had been returned. And finally, also at the DOJ for inciting an insurrection on January 6th. All of which is to say, starting to think that maybe Trump's strategy of rampant, ruthless lawlessness wasn't actually a great decision after all. And yet, at the same time, it's not entirely surprising that Trump would act so recklessly considering he was rarely, if ever, held accountable before this. All of which is a warning to prosecutors who are currently investigating Donald Trump that when you let that guy dictate the terms of the conversation, when you refuse to prosecute him swiftly and decisively, he will charge full speed ahead to commit more crimes. If your job is to hold criminals accountable and you refuse to do that, then at some point, that person who isn't doing their job also shares some degree of the blame. But hopefully the fact that we are finally witnessing some accountability for just a few of the raft of crimes committed by Donald Trump is enough of a signal to those other prosecutors that the sky will not fall if you hold that criminal accountable. So hopefully these moves by Justice Reed in New York and by Alvin Bragg in Manhattan aren't just happening in a vacuum, but instead signal more accountability on the horizon for Donald Trump at both the state and federal level. It was his choice to do the crime. Now comes the part where he does the time. Before you go, I need your help. I'm right on the cusp of hitting 2 million subscribers, so please help me grow this channel so the progressive media ecosystem grows by hitting the subscribe button right here on the screen. I also started a Spanish channel so we can finally start regaining some of that lost ground among Spanish speakers, so if you want to help support those efforts, you can hit that subscribe button. And finally, if you listen to podcasts and you want to support mine, you'll find a link to that on the screen as well. Thanks so much for watching.